Bum
How's it
bum
go?
bum ba-dum bum bum
Oh,
bum
man,
bum.
bum.
Man, 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 man,
Man.
bum 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 bum.
Go on, let's join in. Man, money, Bash Bros.
Welcome to Las Vegas.
Yeah. How are you settling in?
Good, but you know what? It was snowing today. It's very diverse here. Yeah, you have no idea. So the temperatures kind of arrived here maybe like 3-4 weeks ago, I guess, and the temperatures have been varying, dramatically from four from 4 up to like 22, 23. Last night this is nighttime temperatures, basically 2 above freezing. Woke up this morning, it was like, wow, it's snowing. Yeah. So, and then, when you look at the forecast in 2 or 3 days time, it's going to be going up to about 21, 22 again. So it's kind of like, yeah, everywhere. But I got to be honest, very happy to be here. Yeah, it's pretty, I think because what it is, a lot of people relate Las Vegas to the Strip and obviously the nightlife and the casinos, and that's never appealed to me. But what I like about Vegas is that obviously I relate to it with being obviously the dominated home to the Mr. Olympia for many, many years. And the hotels are just very different in themselves. They've all got a different feel, a different theme. So you can't help get drawn into like, wow, this is a pretty cool place. But there's obviously another side to Vegas, and that's obviously different areas. And where I'm staying is an area called Summerlin, which is a very, very nice area. So it's very cool here. And of course, the Dragon's Lair, Flex's new facility, it is pretty badass to say the least, guys. Yeah, it's a pretty impressive facility.
How far is it till it opens now, Neil?
Well, it's open to the public now, so it's open to the public, and they have the official opening launch on Saturday, the 27th of March. So I think it's maybe 2 weeks tomorrow, where a lot of celebrities and influencers from our industry and other industries as well, because obviously Flex is very well respected and connected in different businesses. So yeah, it's exciting, guys. It's an exciting journey, an exciting new start, I would say, something different. So just pushing forward as you have to, because it's been a challenge in 2020 and it's obviously a very challenging 2021, isn't it?
Yes.
I know it's still very early doors, and I don't know if you can touch on it at all, but is that potentially the start of a few more to come for him in terms of business ventures and gyms?
I know that Flex is looking to expand the Dragon's Lair franchise, worldwide, and it really comes down to people which have a very similar outlook with what his vision as far as a facility is concerned. Obviously, he's a partner with Arsenal Strength, so he's actually a partner within that company, and Andrew owns that company, who's a majority shareholder. He's really done a great job. Him and his wife and the team have done a great job of elevating the product line, working on new pieces of equipment, bringing things different, making changes to existing products within the Arsenal line and making them even better. And the brand has expanded dramatically. Like Arsenal have actually gone dramatically up in the marketplace as far as a desirable and much needed and wanted selected piece of equipment. And I know that Flex is looking to expand the Dragon's Lair franchise. So it's really about people which have the same vision, people which are on similar wavelengths with him and obviously want to invest into that. And I know Flex and Andrew from Arsenal will obviously support anyone as much as they possibly can with their expertise, obviously in their chosen field. So if there's anyone who's interested, obviously, to be involved, then definitely reach out, guys, because I know that they're looking to expand on it. But that being said, that being said, it's obviously Flex had his Dragon's Lair in Boca for a number of years. And I think there was sort of three phases to that, three different phases to the Dragon's Lair in Boca Raton, where the first phase was basically selected pieces of equipment from multiple different lines. Then he had pretty much the full line of new Arsenal throughout that facility. And that facility was about 8,000, 9,000 square feet, roughly thereabouts. And then he sold all of the equipment off and then had the new line of Arsenal. And again, that's happened now for the fourth time being here. It's a very different facility here compared to Florida, because it was a private, exclusive facility. It wasn't open to the public. It wasn't the fact that the public wasn't welcome, is that Flex wanted it to be, an exclusive facility just for him, and a facility of excellence with the trainers which trained out there. So it worked out pretty well, because when Flex made the transition and the decision, him and Ali, to move to Vegas, Steve, who was one of the main trainers in the old facility, kind of took over and bought the equipment, and now was obviously doing his own thing there. So it's very cool how things have obviously moved forward. But the Dragon's Lair in Vegas, it's just very different, guys. I mean, I separate my relationship with Flex because we've been working together for 18 years. So there's very many layers of each and every one of us. Yes, there's different layers of us. I know him in every layer that he could potentially, have on himself. The Dragon's Lair here is so different to what I thought it was going to be like. And you can't compare it to anything else, around the world, because it's just so unique. It's a great experience for anyone who's going to walk through that doors. And I think that it's also going to be a facility of, it's going to stamp its authority with the type of people which are going to go there. I think the type of people which are going to go there are people which are really serious about training. None of these sort of like IG influencers who are just looking, for attention. And, the industry's changed dramatically, in some ways for the better, and I think some ways for the worse. I think it's changed for the better in the sense of we've got all these exciting new divisions. The IFB Pro League has opened up the industry dramatically, which means in the past, if we were looking to compete, we had to fit into a box. Now I feel there are many boxes for us to choose from. So whether it's classic bodybuilding, whether it's men's physique, whether it's fitness, figure, the industry has changed, I think, dramatically in so many different ways for the better. But I feel where things have changed the worst is just the way that social media controls so much, and a lot of what you see is very, very fake.
Absolutely. I mean, the people that are doing really well are the people in social media, aren't they? Those are the people that are getting the kudos and getting the respect, far more so than the people that are winning shows or doing well with being an athlete. The respect is like jaded somewhat now for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try to stay off social media as much as I can. Now, of course, I have to do a certain level of social media, I understand, but I really don't go on Facebook very often. I do what I need to do on Instagram. My favorite way of embracing or connecting with the public is when I get the chance to meet people, at events. And obviously last year, there was very few events taking place. Even this year, there's obviously question marks. I do understand if we're trying to progress in the industry, social media is a business platform. So I get it. But when, I don't know if it's because, I come from a different era or I'm older, but for me, respect should be a byproduct of hard work and your commitment and your passion and, sort of time served. Whereas now, sort of credit or respect comes from a lot of fake content that you see on the internet, and there's a lot of confliction out there as well. So the great thing about the internet in general is that there's so much free content out there, but there's a lot of confliction out there, and there's a lot of really, really bad advice out there as well. So I think it's important that, you know, for anyone who's new in the industry or somebody who's really sort of to looking to potentially make the better decisions moving forward and what direction, I think that it's important that those of you out there kind of extract the information, think very wisely. Does it kind of make sense before you make your decisions on where you move forward? That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, because before, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because before there wasn't any information. You had to like know a guy or know a person or meet someone in the gym, and they would tell you the thing about the training. And so there was not a lot, and now there's so much. It's almost no better than none. I always say it's like the Netflix analogy. You try and pick a film, but on Netflix there's too many films, so you never pick a film.
Yeah. It's I mean, you guys from the UK, it's that I wouldn't say that I've lost connection with the UK, because I'm very passionate about the UK. There's a lot of great talent out there. But it's funny because you go to different countries and you see or sense a different sense of support and respect, I would say. There's a lot of talent which has come out the UK, especially obviously in the bodybuilding industry and obviously men's physique. And it's great for me to be able to stand on the sideline and see so much talent, you know, moving forward in the industry. You know, James Hollahead, I mean, it's a prideful thing, you know, and even though I kind of just concentrate on my own little thing, and quite often Flex will speak to me about certain people in our industry, and I won't even know who he's talking about. And he'll say, you need to know this person. You must know it. I'll say, Flex, I kind of just stay in my little bubble, because life is so busy and there is so much going on. I just tend to sort of like submerge myself in my own little bubble, concentrate on what I need to do. And I also feel that if there's people that we're supposed to meet at some point along the way, those things are going to just naturally happen, instead of like forcing them to happen in a sense.
Oh, that ruins my plan. I was just going to turn up to Vegas and do circles, hoping to bump into you.
Listen, you guys are welcome at Vegas anytime.
Well, it sounds like we need a road trip to
Well,
Dragon's Lair. I tell you, the weather surprised me. When I went to Vegas, I'm pretty sure it was 38 at night.
When was you out there? What time of year?
I can't. I don't remember. August, I think.
Okay, yeah, and it would be, because obviously the temperatures are very diverse, extremes. I think from what I've been led to believe, September, October are great months. November is a really pleasant month. Obviously, once you go into December, January, February, those are the winter months. Now, you are going to have temperatures which are going to be 21, 22, 24, even even on days in the winter month, but it could go from like 22, 23, 24, literally down to 2, 3, 4. You can't quite see it because there's a building hiding in the mountains, but it's a beautiful view from where we are. And you can see the snow all on top of the mountains. It's very cool. And apparently, if you drive about 3/4 an hour, you can ski. And yeah, the snow in the mountains, yeah. And that's the thing. Another thing which appeals to me about Vegas is it kind of ticks a lot of the boxes that I like. So Florida was a great experience, but it was kind of soulless. It was just flat. Everywhere you go, you could drive 5 or 6 hours north and it's flat. You drive 3, 4 hours south, it's flat. The beaches are beautiful, but I'm used to the beaches in Wales and the coastline, to me, which is just like, that makes me feel at peace. That's where I'm at my happiest. Whereas there was no mountains, there was no, amazing scenery. Yes, there was a straight beach with blue water and white sand, but that's all you could see far, far into the distance. I'm used to coastline. And obviously the UK has got some amazing coastline. And I'm also used to being and living in the country. So I like nature. I like being out sort of, out in the outdoors. So what's great about Vegas is that I have all these amazing places on my doorstep. As I said, like Mount Charleston is only 30, 40-minute drive. Utah is only an hour and a half drive. Now, depending on what part of Utah you go to. So I've got all this amazing things that kind of bring peace to me on my doorstep. And then you've obviously got all the amazing restaurants, the shows, you know, the nightlife, everything. Yeah, so everything I could want, I can see it being here.
We've sold it to me.
Just imagine how busy Flex's gym is going to be if the Olympia goes back to Vegas, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that initially, I think that it wasn't the factor which drew him to Vegas, because it's funny, you know, we've been coming to Vegas, you know, as an athlete and coach for, wow, man, I can't even remember, like maybe like 12 years, but we've been going to Vegas together when we were with Gaspari, probably like 14 years ago. And he always said to me many times, I could see myself living in Vegas at some point. You know, I could see myself living at Vegas at some point. And it's kind of gone full circle now. I do think that, you know, with the Olympia being here was something that was an interest to him. But remember, you can't make a successful business off just one weekend. Yes. So, you know, his business model is not based around the Olympia. However, if the Olympia was to come back to Las Vegas, I feel that obviously his gym would draw a lot of athletes and attention for all the right reasons. And it's not because he's a 7 times Mr. Olympia. And I know you guys will say, yeah, well, that would be a contributing factor. There are many great Olympians out there. Jay is a perfect example. To me, I think he was like the ultimate Mr. Olympia, in the sense that he found the balance to be the most elite professional bodybuilder on stage, but also off stage. If you look at Jay, he still draws massive traction. He hasn't stepped on stage for many years. He's a very successful businessman and highly respected just because the way that he carried himself on stage and off stage. And I think that's, you know, one of many great qualities that Flex has brought to the industry, not just being a 7 times Mr. Olympia champion on stage, but also how he holds himself, how he conducts himself, how he relates to the fan. Because I've been there with him at so many endless fitness events where he will not leave that stand until he saw the last person. And it also amazes me that he remembers people's names. I'm no good with names, I'm good with faces. But with him, he can remember a conversation that he had maybe with somebody 2 or 3 years ago. And it's amazing that, and that's how much he's into, you know, his fans. And when I say his fans, I say it in a sense of respect. I'm talking about 2 people which have mutual respect or passion for the industry, but they happen to be both in line with the same kind of interest, which is fitness. But one is a champion athlete, and maybe the other person may be somebody who's never going to step on stage, but is just enthusiastic about the industry. And Flex relates to all of those people. It's great for me to see, guys.
Yeah, I've heard stories of Flex remembering like people and being like, oh, you were at the expo 3 years ago and stuff like that. And I've had a couple of people say that they've met him for the second time and he remembered them straight off the bat, and they were amazed.
Yeah.
He's just an all-round personable guy. I've met him a couple of times and stuff. No one can say a bad word about him. And he's like a normal guy. You just meet him and it's like you'd meet anyone, like anywhere.
Yeah. I think that's
because he's Welsh.
Good parenting, guys. You know, good parenting goes a long way, I think.
And he's Welsh.
Yeah, he's Welsh. That's right. I've got the cup as well. So
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about you guys, because as I said, I tend to stay in my bubble. I kind of just concentrate on doing my own thing, and I'm inquisitive to know about you guys.
There's one real bodybuilder on the podcast, Jack.
Okay.
Jack.
Okay. Hello, Jack.
No, I'm only joking.
Tommy, why don't you tell Neil why you started the podcast and
So yeah, ultimately, you know, obviously we had the news of Luke passing back last year, and there was obviously a lot of people with lockdown suffering with redirecting their energy in a certain way. You know, people's coping mechanisms for their mental health is generally can be for a lot of people like ourselves is the gym, and they're not able to go to the gym. And I just wanted to make it more of a podcast, like sort of regular guys like us who are able to talk about that sort of stuff, and for people to be able to relate to that. You've got someone like Dan who's a Mr. Universe winner, NABA pro, soon to be IFBB pro. He's, we try to be open and honest and frank, and just let people see that, you know what I mean, it's affecting everyone, even those of us who are very strong-minded,
I think that for a lot of people, training is therapy, yes. And it's not necessarily because we're weak, or individuals are weak. It's an outlet. It's an outlet that you can step away from the outside world and all the pressures that come with it. And you can be in your moment and your time for that hour or 2 hours. For me, it was therapy. It was also gave me the ability to express myself of how I wanted to look. And that came down to obviously commitment on many levels. And I think that, the coronavirus issue is a very sensitive topic because people have different opinions and views. But I don't mean to segue away from, what you were talking about. It still amazes me and frustrates me that I haven't seen any government around the world pushing and promoting exercise, healthy living, healthy lifestyle, eating correctly, supporting your immune system to fight or aid the chances of you catching COVID.
And that's something that they should have done and should have been doing before COVID even existed anyway.
Exactly. They talk about a big percentage of people, who have COVID or more likely than to be seriously affected are overweight, obese people. You could say the same probably to most illnesses or viruses around the world, that when you obviously have a compromised immune system, and there are many factors which come into play with that, then obviously healthy lifestyle, healthy living is really, really important. It still amazes me that no government is pushing and promoting exercise and the necessary changes that we could all make to better ourselves with positive lifestyle habits. And the gym is an outlet, it's an outlet for many. And it's also been proven, apparently, that, sort of case on case increased chances of catching COVID is really not coming from gym environments, very much the complete opposite. But it's been difficult for me to accept the way that, the UK government have handled the situation. We can all pass blame on many different things, but it just amazes me how the UK public allow the politicians who are making these decisions, very bad decisions, get away with things. It's just crazy. Like it's just absolute. It's just not. You can't justify it to me in any way whatsoever. I know it's a difficult job for them, and I feel for them. I feel for all the politicians which have got to make difficult decisions, because sometimes their decisions are right, sometimes they're wrong. But there's been many times that they've made many, many wrong decisions, yet there's no repercussions of it in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, there was a pushback, wasn't there? Like, mostly from Liverpool with the tier system.
Yeah.
And Nathan D'Asha became like the person that was headhunted for this. And the upshot was recently that they basically just turned up to his gym and beat the shit out of him.
I saw that. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to pass comment on it. I saw the video, the video. I don't know what was said. I'm not saying it was justified by any means whatsoever. The trouble is that none of us could actually hear what was said in that moment of time. I don't think it was a straightforward situation. I think there was some form of, something must have provoked it, maybe over a period of time. But what happened to Nathan should not be and cannot be justified by, by the police force, which obviously handle that situation. But again, you question yourselves, or you think, right, okay, so what are the repercussions of this? What are actually going to happen? Like, who's going to be reprimanded with the situation which took place? It's a mess, guys. It's a real mess.
What's the situation? What's the situation in Vegas then, Neil? What's it like out there?
So you have to wear masks. I'm not saying that the information I give you is accurate. When I came out here like 3-4 weeks ago, I think that restaurants were 25% capacity. So if you went into a restaurant, it was 25% capacity. I don't know if that's the same for shops, because I really haven't been in a lot of places. Then after about a week, it went up to 35% capacity as far as, restaurants and cafes. I believe at the end of March, it might be going up to 50% capacity. And I think they're looking to potentially go up to 100% capacity maybe by the end of April, May. Now, don't hold me to these figures because you just hear things, yes? But I do believe at the moment it's 35% capacity. As far as gyms are open as normal. People are just getting on with their normal lives. There is no lockdown restrictions, but you do have to wear masks when you're obviously in public circles, as far as being indoors. Outdoors, no. I think people are respectful, but I also feel that the governor of Nevada has actually found a very good compromise where people are able to move forward, provide for their families with work, but also be cautious and respectful for other people. And then when you look at other states like Florida, Florida really didn't, they shut down for a very brief time. I was in the UK at the time for about 8 months, and there was a lockdown restriction there, but they opened up. And when you look at their cases, they have no increase in cases with COVID in any way whatsoever compared to other states like New York or other states which were locked down for, vast amounts of time. So I just don't think that it's possible to sustain the level of lockdown and restrictions economically and mentally. But again, none of these politicians are taking responsibility for people's mental health. And when we look at the UK in general, how much money is being given out in furlough? We're probably looking at, I wouldn't even like to think, all right? We're looking at vast amount of money. And the UK government spoke about the fact that they needed to create this lockdown, or one of the reasons is because they needed to protect the NHS. Well, by the time 2021 is over, and if it was made public how much money the UK government have given out in furloughs or other aids, which they wouldn't have had to do if they didn't lock down the country, how many new hospitals could have been built in the UK? We're not even just talking about, supporting the UK with more hospitals. We have an issue in the world with obesity. We have an issue in the world with cancer. We hear it quite often that people don't get the referral attention and time needed when they have life-threatening illnesses. This is before COVID. So my point is, if the UK government were really concerned about people's health and well-being in the UK, then why don't we have better hospitals, more attention? Because who's going to be paying back this money, to the UK? The UK government were in a financial mess before this took place.
We had 100% deficit. The UK owed as much money as existed. We were bankrupt as a country before COVID.
The answer is that they've increased our taxes. So to add salt to the wounds, those of us who've worked through will now, who didn't benefit from the furlough scheme in any way, have now got to pay the taxes. In the same way that, I've got a gripe about the system in general, but in the same way that, I know people who were on furlough didn't want to be on furlough, but surely there's got to be something in it. You know what I mean? There's got to be a separation somewhere along the lines for those who are now having to pay increased tax rates. Their pay rates are not going to go up in the same way, are they? Inflation hasn't gone up in the right way across wages in the UK for years.
Well, I think we should talk about some bodybuilding.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we could do this all day.
Oh yeah, we could go in
Definitely do this
circles.
all day.
Well, I'd like to think at least it was a positive conversation, even though the COVID situation isn't positive.
No.
It's not. If we were
Absolutely. I just didn't want our valuable time to be used up with a subject so incredibly large, and I'm certainly nowhere near anywhere to have like a really solid opinion on it. Really, I mean, I have an opinion, but my power as a teacher is basically I'm a sheep in the system. I have my COVID tests that I have to test myself at home. I go in and it's madness. We test the kids at work. It's the maddest thing you've ever seen. We have a test room in our college. It's insanity. There's no medical professionals there. It's just us. It's the weirdest thing. And the power of me even trying to make an impact of that is find a new job.
Is it true that the tests work better from the rectum?
Well, I've got a few, so maybe I'll do some AB and get back to you. I'll get back to you there. I don't think COVID would be brave enough to go near my rectum.
So bodybuilding it is, guys. Fire away.
Shall we do the intro and you have to cut it back into the?
I think we're past that now, Dan.
There has been a bit of an intro.
We're like balls deep.
What I really wanted to start off with, because most people know Neil through Flex Lewis, but Neil was an incredible bodybuilder in his own right, especially known for his condition and his posing, and it's something that you've helped lots of people on. Lee Powell was singing your praises a couple of weeks back when we had him on, and so I wanted to kind of, for the people that don't know, explore your journey as an excellent bodybuilder in your own right. People might not even know that happened.
It's a long time ago. It's 33 years ago, guys, since I started training. So I started training at 19 years of age. I listened to Lee's podcast. I found it very, very interesting because I didn't realize that Lee had kind of like had depression and had gone through different phases in his life, which then equated him or allowed him to go into the direction of bodybuilding. And you could say that that's had a huge, which can relate to that. For me, I got into bodybuilding completely by chance. Of course, at any age, when you're a young teenager growing up, and you look at a muscular physique, a man's muscular physique, we're all going to look at that and say, wow, wow, that's very appealing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's enough for us to decide that we're going to go to the gym. And I was always active with sports, in many different sports. But when I grew up on basically government housing estates all my life, council estates in different places. But a really good friend of mine, we became best friends for many, many years. Philip was really muscular. His name was Philip Syme, and he was a really muscular fucker. So I can remember, even at very early ages, when it came summertime and the shorts and vests came out, I always felt a bit of a complex about myself standing next to him, because he had these calves like Flex Lewis. Bearing in mind, I was very young then. So, your perception or your view is very different compared to now. So what happened is that fast forward, I left school. He was a year younger than me. I moved to a different council estate. So we didn't spend much time together outside of school, but when we were in school, we used to hang out a lot. I left school, started an apprenticeship as a mechanic. He finished school a year later, went into the army, but we'd stay in touch from time to time. And then what happened, he was home from leave, and I just happened to bump into him by chance. I can even remember the road. I can remember I was on my push bike, and I was like, well, Phil, I didn't know you were home. Yeah, he said, I'm home at the moment, maybe for a couple of weeks or whatever. It might have been about a month. And I said, oh, where are you off to now? He said, I'm going to the gym. I said, what? He said, yeah, I've started bodybuilding. And then straight away I thought, well, if he's bodybuilding, I've got to go bodybuilding because he's muscular. And that was it. That was it. So what happened is that I followed him to this gym and had no idea what I was doing. And then what happened, there was a local bodybuilding competition that he had heard about, and he wanted to go and watch this competition. And he wasn't able to drive. I passed my driving test. So I said to him, okay, no problems. We'll go to watch this show. And this show was actually in a place called Hafford West, which was probably only about 30-minute drive from me. Bearing in mind, I'd never been to a bodybuilding competition before. I'd never seen a bodybuilder before. And I walked into this auditorium and the junior bodybuilders on stage at the time. And I can remember thinking, what the fuck? I want to be a bodybuilder. And that was it. That's exactly what stemmed it. And I can remember as well at the time, because I didn't know anybody at all. There was a gentleman called Mark Harris. He was actually in the junior class, and it was the juniors on when I walked into that auditorium. We're probably a couple of minutes late, but walked in there. So the show had already started. The juniors are on there. I didn't know there was different divisions. I had no idea. But all I could see is these amazing physiques on stage. And I can remember there was one athlete which made a very big impression to me. His name was Mark Harris. Me and Mark became good friends later on, in the industry. Mark went on to be a multi Welsh champion, went on to do very, very well representing the UK. Won his IFBB pro card as a middleweight. So he basically won the middleweight class in what was the, EFBB British finals. And he won the overall that day as well. That was the day when there was only one pro card given away, once a year. And it's funny how certain things sort of make an impression on you. And I did my first show after 12 weeks of training. I was about 128 pounds on stage, nothing on me. Hated the whole experience of being on stage, but I enjoyed the journey and the process of accountability and discipline that I'd learned in those 12 weeks of training. And that was my starting point in the industry. And obviously, things just moved forward with my amateur bodybuilding career. In 2002, I turned pro. Now, I was a very fortunate athlete in the sense of muscle came very easy for me as long as I was disciplined. If I ate properly and I trained hard and I rested, then the building muscle came pretty easy. I was a very genetically gifted individual, but I had to put the work in. I had to put the work in. And living in Tembe, sort of aware of where Tembe is. There was no internets back then. There was obviously just Muscle and Fitness and etc. And my nutritional outlook was doing, because obviously from time to time you would speak to people and you would ask them what they were doing with their diets or their training. And my sort of outlook or philosophy was very different in the sense that I still had my dairy, I still had my fruits, I still had my brown granary bread, where it wasn't just chicken and rice or fish and potatoes. There was an array of different, macronutrient profiles and vitamins, minerals, trace elements. I tried to get different protein profiles in from different food sources each day, as well as my carbohydrates. And it worked for me. Now, I know that what works for you doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but I do feel that, and I'm not saying it's the same now, but I definitely feel that the bodybuilding lifestyle, when it came to nutrition, was very one-dimensional. And for some people, it worked very well. But for me, I felt that my body did better when I took an abundance of different, essential nutrients into my body. And I know that's a very short, short breakdown, but I do feel that I probably could have turned pro maybe 6 or 7 years before I did, but I also enjoyed, but what was more important to me, my bodybuilding, was my family. So I wanted to spend quality time with my family and not spend an obsession chasing my bodybuilding, if that makes sense. And I feel that I juggle things very, very well. There'd be times I wouldn't train for months and months and months. I'd go back to the gym, train for a few weeks, and then think, right, I'm going to do a show in 18 weeks time or 14 weeks time. So the pressure would be on me. So my lifestyle habits would be completely disciplined and regimented for that type of lifestyle. I was also probably working like 60 to 70 hours a week throughout all of my bodybuilding, career. Because when I left school at 16, I served an apprenticeship as a motor vehicle technician. So I was a mechanic. I spent 5 years in college, 1 day a week, plus obviously served my time in the garage. 16 years. I spent 16 years as a mechanic. So I started when I was 16, finished when I was roughly about 32. When I was 19 is when I started bodybuilding. About 6 months after I started bodybuilding, I started working on the door as well in a nightclub. And that was indirectly full-time. Now, it wasn't full-time where I worked 7 days a week, but in the summer months, I would work up to 6 nights a week on the door. And then in the winter months, which you could say is like 8 months of the year, I was working every Friday and Saturday. And I lived that lifestyle doing both those jobs for 14 years, because I spent 16 years as a mechanic and 14 years, working in a nightclub. Never took time off work ever, unless it was like paid holiday because I'd obviously done my time. It was very rarely I took time off work in the nightclub, because I needed to work the both jobs in order to sustain or give the lifestyle that I wanted to my family and also my bodybuilding. So I was never that committed bodybuilder until I made the decision to compete, if that makes sense. I trained hard, but it was once a competition was sort of set in stone, I'd flick the switch and I would go from being that casual lifestyle bodybuilder to being serious about my bodybuilding. And I was very fortunate, my physique matured, it grew, it was very complete, but I also trained for that. Lee Labrada was my inspiration. He was somebody that I could relate to because he was short in structure. He's very symmetrical. He was a phenomenal poser, one of the most successful bodybuilders of all time at that time as well. And probably is today if you actually look back at his career. To people, as far as like giving me some form of motivation. But that being said, I would look at individuals for their different qualities. So to me, if I was to be asked, who do I think the greatest all-time Mr. Olympia was as far as their physique on stage? To me, I would say Ronnie Coleman. I feel that when Ronnie was at his all-time best, compared against all the other Mr. Olympias, I would have said it would be Ronnie first. And then I would probably say Phil.
Which year?
I couldn't say a year because I never followed the industry so much that I could name the years. I remember the years which are important to me, if that makes sense. Yeah. But it's the impression, it's the impression. Because people have different views. Some people might say it was on Ronnie's third Olympia win when he was at his all-time lifetime best. Some people might say it was, when he won his second.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, when they were at their all-time best. Because in most cases, I would probably say that 90% of all Mr. Olympias have looked worse as they've gone through winning those titles. Yes, in most cases. And then there are some, past Mr. Olympias who have not won, but brought a worse physique to the stage. So for instance, I think it's easy to say that Jay's best look was his last Mr. Olympia win, probably, okay? Yet his last time on stage didn't justify what he'd looked like in past Olympia wins. But if we were to look at all the Mr. Olympias when they were at their all-time best, and maybe it was Dorian's second Mr. Olympia, maybe it was Phil Heath's third Mr. Olympia, I personally feel that it would have been Ronnie, Phil Heath, then a toss-up between Dorian and maybe Jay, maybe Dorian, but that's a personal view. So I'm just purely looking at the physique on stage. But then the most inspirational bodybuilder to me of all time for mindset, accountability, commitment was Dorian. And then if I was to speak about the best bodybuilder of all time when it comes to being a complete round individual, it would probably be Jay, because of how he's managed to combine business, respect, success on stage, and still be present with today's athletes. But again, this is just my opinion.
And he still looks decent as well.
He does. I mean, he looks phenomenal. I mean, like when you look at other athletes like, Ronnie, and you look at other athletes like Dorian, they're a shadow of their former self. But it doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't mean that, what they're doing now is wrong, because they've moved forward in different areas of their life. I like what I see of what Dorian is doing today and the things that he's chasing. It's irrelevant what he looked like in the past, because for me, I have an image of that athlete on stage, and it made a very big impression for me with what he looked like on stage, and his mindset and his commitment, was just something so different. And he went against the grain, guys. Remember, everybody said, America is the Mecca. No, he stayed in his bubble. He stayed in his bubble and he concentrated on his own shit. And that to me I think shows really good strength of character, to be honest with you.
You've helped me out here, because I've never wanted to say that Ronnie was the best of all time, because Dorian's my hero. But you're right. It is probably on stage. It is Ronnie, but yeah, Dorian, just his, blood and guts. I must have watched that 40,000 times. Like, just the energy in that, and his just tunnel vision. It completely encompassed everything that I wanted to be. It like, it gets you in the feels, doesn't it? Makes your hair stand up.
Yeah, definitely. And Ronnie, Ronnie was, unique in himself. But to me, Dorian was just, and it's not because he was British, because I know it's a prideful thing. Of course it is, guys, because none of us personally knew him when he was an athlete. He was a part of chemical nutrition, CMP. I was one of the CMP athletes as well. I didn't really get to know him at all. I think he'd actually stepped away from the industry and wasn't competing when I was maybe a part of the team. I can't remember, but he had certainly had something to do with the company at one point, with Kerry Kayes, when it was CMP. But he was unique. And I liked the fact that, did I like his structure and his physique? No, not really, because it was different to the things that I was chasing. But I'm one of those people who purely looks at somebody with their qualities. And to me, the qualities that Dorian had were unbelievable. Will we ever see another Dorian Yates? I don't know. We haven't seen one to this date. But then, as I said, there's many layers of each individual, yes. And I think that what Dorian brought to the industry, Phil, Jay, and all these great Mr. Olympia athletes, and also the athletes which maybe will never win them, Mr. Olympia. Everybody has the ability to bring something. And for me, I like to sort of extract different pieces of the jigsaw, if I would say, as a means of like inspiration.
On to the kind of next point is, when did you first see Flex and just think, fuck, this is the guy?
2003. So what happened in 2002, I won my pro card. There was 2 pro cards which could be won at the time in the UK. One was winning the overall British finals, and one was winning the Open Welsh. And the Open Welsh, in some ways you could say it was harder than winning the overall British. And the reason why I say that is because when you won the British Championships, you had to win your weight class, and then the weight class winners would all compete against each other. There was only one winner. And I think in some ways that's the way the industry should be, or certainly shouldn't be so many pro cards given away today, because the talent isn't there. The talent might be there in some divisions. So I do feel like men's physique, bikini, the talent might be there enough to be able to give more than one pro card out. But the trouble is that if you dilute the talent, you're not nurturing the future. And I know that a lot of people inspire and push towards winning a pro card. The pro card wasn't something that appealed to me. It was for a little time, but then it wasn't, to be honest with you, because being a pro and being a competitive pro is 2 different things. Being an amateur can be more rewarding in the sense of, if you're a really top class amateur, you could be competitive, and competitive means you step on stage against athletes that inspire you to be better, and you could potentially be compared against those athletes. Maybe you come second, maybe you come third, maybe you come fourth, maybe you'll be first or second, but you're being compared. And it allows you to realize how good you are, because the athletes which may be challenging you in those call outs are athletes that inspire you, because you look at their physiques and you're like, fuck, this guy's got an amazing physique. Wow, being compared against this guy, you know, I must be at this level, if that makes sense. But the trouble is, when you step on stage as a pro, the level can go up to another level. And we've all seen so many professionals or so many athletes win their pro cards and step on stage, and they don't even get looked upon because the talent is too high. Or there could be just so much depth that they get hidden, you know, in the darks, because the depth of talent is so high. So for me, it wasn't the fact that I was a defeatist and I didn't want to win a pro card because I didn't think I would be competitive. I really believed that I could be competitive as a pro athlete, but I knew it would need about 2 or 3 years of extra work once I won my pro card. And I didn't know if I wanted to wait that 2 to 3 years extra. Also, what forced me out the industry, or what made me make the decision to step away from competing in 2003, is that when I was born with a hereditary knee issue where my ligaments on my right knee were not taut enough. So instead of my knee doing this, it was floating. So I had severe bone-to-bone contact at a very, very young age. So in 2002 is when I won my pro card. I won it in September, I think. In October, I had an MRI completely missing. And I knew in order for me to put the extra muscle on, and I knew I could put it on, it would take another 2 or 3 years. Could I rush the process? Yes, but I was never reckless. I was always sensible when it came to, you know, assistance. It needed 2 or 3 years of hard work. My knee was never going to be able to put up with that load, and every pound of muscle I put on my frame was being impacted with pain and discomfort and the quality of life of my day-to-day living, you see. But it was 2002 I won my pro card. The thing is about the Open Wales is that you would attract world champions, European champions, professionals from other divisions, as well as the very, very best amateur bodybuilders throughout the whole of the UK competing, because the overall Open Wales was one winner, one pro card. So you had the likes of Hanny Glanville, Steve Stinton, Steve Crichton, Grant Thomas, and this is just you know, the talent of athletes which competed was unbelievable, guys. Trevor Crouch. So you were competing against world champions, European champions, you know, professionals from, say, NABA, all on that day. There was no height classes, you know, there was no weight classes. There was just one winner. And the Open Wales only took place for about 3 years, I think. And the 3 pros which won pro obviously over the 3 years went on to be very successful professionals as well, indirectly. And I won my pro card there in 2002. I retired and stepped away from bodybuilding as far as competing, and I stopped training completely of May in 2003. And in 2003 is where I met Flex when he was competing. I was judging. And I can remember sitting at the judges' table, and a couple of people had said there was going to be a couple of really good juniors competing. And I hadn't seen any good juniors for a couple of years, because the talent in the UK and the talent in Wales was very high for a long time. And then it seemed to go down as far as the junior talent. There was nothing new coming through for a good few years. So I didn't really take much notice of what was said to me when they said there's going to be a really couple of good juniors. And then the junior class started, and then obviously Flex walked out. And I can remember, bearing in mind, I don't know this young kid. I can remember the hairs on my forearms standing up, because straight away it's like, fuck, this kid has got that magic. I've never seen a structure like that. Now, he was a body of complete 2 halves. He had these legs, thighs, hamstrings, calves, like a real mature top amateur open athlete, but he had this upper body of a junior. But it just had this sense of like flow, if that makes sense. And then what happened is, after prejudging, I was in the car park, and I wasn't aware that Flex's training partner was this particular person. His name was Steve Naylor. He was a very successful amateur bodybuilder. He was a very Arnold-esque type of physique, won a lot of different titles, but never came in shape. But he won his titles because of his shape and structure. Well, Steve was competing in the show, and it was probably the best that I had seen him to that date as far as his condition. And I can remember saying to him, Steve, you look great up there, well done. And he said, oh, thanks, Neil. I said, probably the best I've seen you. And he said, oh, my training partner wants a picture with you. Is that okay? And I said, yeah, of course. And then he introduced me to Flex. And I said, oh, you're the junior, yeah? And he said, yeah. And I said, oh, wow. I said, you look, like great. I said, are you going to be doing the British finals? And he said, no, I don't know. And I bet this was prejudging. And I said, why not? He said, oh, because I'm not good enough. I said, you're not good enough like you look. I said, but if you do what you need to do between now and the British, you can win the British. And we just briefly spoke. And I said, if you want me to help you for the British Championships, I said, then just shoot me a message. And then what happened is, the day after the show, he messaged me. The day after that, he came down to my home, which was about a 50-minute drive away. And that was the start of our working relationship. And it went from there. And it's been great for me to see how he's matured, not just as an athlete, but as an individual in the industry, and as a father, and as a husband, and as, a businessman. And that's 18 years ago.
So were you coaching at the time, or was that literally the first sort of person you ever took on board, and then it kind of went from there?
No, I started probably coaching when I was about 22, 23, and it was just a hobby. So people would ask me, random questions about training or nutrition, or what was I doing with my diet, because I was always known for my conditioning. And I just helped people because I wanted to. Now, my time was limited because, as I said, I work full-time as a mechanic, plus on the door as well. And I obviously had family commitments. But over a year, I probably looked after maybe 6 or 8 people, just coaching them for a show or with their off season, just as a complete hobby. So obviously it was no different when I met Flex. But what happened is that as Flex matured, and his career started taking off in a different direction, it just drew natural attention, from the industry that we obviously are from. And then people obviously would reach out, and it came to a point then I had to make a decision. What was I going to do as far as my career? Because I was working so many hours, it was impossible for me to, and bearing in mind at the time, I wasn't charging anyone for my coaching either. So I wasn't charging anyone for their coaching. It was just something I was wanting to do. And if Lee was to speak to you, did I charge Lee? But this is obviously further forward. I can't remember what I charged Lee, but it was very, very, very little. Very, very little money. But it wasn't the driving force for me. My driving force was trying to help somebody reach their full potential. And it's like, I've never said to an athlete that I felt that something was possible, which wasn't possible, because I never wanted to be responsible for breaking their dreams or their hopes. So I'm very hard to please, in the sense, like, I'm very direct. I have no time for bullshit. Black is black, white is white. We all have aspirations to achieve certain things in life. But if we stand back, not everything is possible. So I've always been very honest. Like, so for instance, if you and I started working together, and maybe you wanted to win the British Championships, and I looked at your physique and I felt that was possible, but it was 2 or 3 years hard work, then would that be something that we'd be concentrating on? No, we'd be concentrating on allowing your body to mature and grow and gain that quality muscle, look to compete in a regional show, before we started looking at the bigger shows. And that's kind of how I've always looked at coaching in a sense. And I've had some great memories and moments with, athletes like John Hodgson and Lee Powell, and obviously Flex Lewis and other athletes in the UK. But it just gained automatic recognition, I would say, with Flex's career, with us working together. And I'm very fortunate that every company that he's been a part of, they also seen the value of the qualities that myself and Flex can bring when it comes to content and things like that. So we were together with Gaspari, we were together with BSN, we're obviously together with Yamamoto Nutrition. So everything has just, evolved. But to answer your question, I started coaching when I was about 22, 23. And then I made the decision probably in 2004 to become a professional coach, where I stepped away from no, later than that, probably like 2006, I stepped away from my 9-to-5 job and just concentrated full time with my coaching.
Have you ever had an athlete that maybe is not potentially known to the public as an outstanding sort of athlete, but you knew them and potentially they didn't rise to where they could have, and they sort of, because there are plenty of people that have done that have great potential and never reach it. Did you ever take anyone on board that didn't quite make it through?
I don't think that any of the past clients that I work with never went on to reach their potential. I think a lot of people are still a work in progress. Flex Lewis is a work in progress, guys. If things move in the direction that we're looking upon, people look at Flex as a 212 athlete still. His genetic potential is so much more than a 212. So I personally feel that he's reached about 25% of his genetic potential. But remember, over a period of time, he's matured. So, he's gone through different stages, whereas a physique is evolved. And if we look at Flex's last show, which was the 2018 Mr. Olympia, I think it's fair to say that was probably his best look to date. And I also know what Flex looks like at 218, 220. He is a more impressive physique than a 212 because his waistline is the same size as a 218, 220, yet his muscle belly is so much fuller. So his symmetry is more improved. It's actually, there's more quality to his physique. But unfortunately, the plan was to step on stage in 220. That didn't happen. And we're moving forward now with our off season. Flex's lowest body weight went down to 204. So he was 204 pounds, probably like beginning of January, I would say. And that was due to the fact that he didn't eat very much food at all. So he was neglecting his food, didn't train at all, was concentrating, obviously, setting up his new business over here because he moved to Vegas in December. So there was a lot of responsibilities and other things which were not important at the time. He's now back up to 228, but a very, very good 228, about 10% body fat. So we're moving obviously in the right direction, but just not forcing that process.
Do you think it was with Flex, basically, he'd spent so long in the 212 that you were almost holding him back, keeping him in that, and you just needed to kind of open the gates? He'd had all that muscle maturity from having that physique for so long that it was almost becoming detrimental to his progression to keep him there. Is that why you made the choice?
I wanted to put him in the open class about 3 years before we made the decision of going into the open class. But there were factors that we needed to also consider as well. And I feel it came to the point in 2018, it was like, listen, we can't do this anymore. It's, bodybuilding is about therapy, like we spoke about, going to the gym and enjoying your training. It gives you a purpose, accountability. But it should also be about expression and evolution. So what was happening is that we really didn't have off seasons, because if we had off seasons, then we'd have to lose all this muscle to make weight, which was completely counterproductive. And it's not, when your fat levels are like 3% body fat, your vital organs are not in a good place, just because of just the fact that you're compromising your health with your fat levels, if that makes sense. but we also had deliverables as far as sponsorship, deliverables. And also I feel that Flex was such a great role model for that 212 class, for the IFBB Pro League and all of bodybuilding in general. So there are lots of things that we had to consider. Also, I think selfishly, we also wanted to hit 6 Mr. Olympia titles. So there were a number of different reasons.
Why not? Why not?
It's like it is about making a statement or a legacy or leaving something behind. Now, Flex is very supportive, and I know that he would be extremely excited if somebody was to surpass his an 8-time 212 Mr. Olympia champion, but he wanted to sort of like push the envelope like Dorian did, or Lee Haney did, or Phil or Ronnie, all these guys. He kind of wanted to do something which made people want to challenge even more, if that makes sense. But there is so much more in Flex Lewis than what the bodybuilding community have seen. We're heading in the right direction as far as where we are with moving forward. And we're just kind of taking it month by month, if that makes sense.
With the open class, we had a conversation about who was the best. There's no conversation with the 212. Ask anyone. Like, who is the greatest?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. But I say it with respect. There's been a lot of talent. Eduardo Correa, Jose Raymond, David Henry. When I think about, the very, 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 very best of the 212 athletes in the world in the last, say, 8 years, 10 years, then, the names that I would mention would be Jose Raymond, David Henry, Eduardo Correa, Flex Lewis.
We had Jose on, and Jose said it.
Yeah.
It was like, Flex is unbeatable.
But let me just do a big shout out to Sean Carida and also Matt Jensen. Sean looked fucking unreal on that stage at last year's Mr. Olympia. However, so did Kamal Alghani.
Yes.
We had Kamal on as well.
And I feel a bit guilty then because I didn't mention Kamal's name just now in, what I would say the very best of the 212. I think the reason why I didn't innocently, Kamal's obviously come into the IFBB Pro League as a IFBB professional within that 212 division over the last couple of years. And of course, I'm going back many years. But Kamal, I would say one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. One of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. I don't think people realize how much success that guy's had as an amateur. I think he's won 12 world titles in different divisions or different federations. Obviously, Mr. Olympia 212 in 2019, an extremely close second in 2020, could have won the show. It could have gone either way. It was apples and oranges. Do I think that Sean deserved to win the Mr. Olympia last year? Yes. If it would have been Kamal who won, would I said that would have been fair? Yes. It was just what they were looking for at the time. But the talent in that 212, I think, has proven itself that the division, should be here. And also, if you look at the bodybuilding industry, I would say the biggest percentage of athletes who compete, if they were to compete, they would be in the 212 division, because as opposed to the open class. But of course, the open class is a different level as far as the amount of muscularity, not always quality, but muscularity.
And if anyone did want to hear about Kamal's amateur career, go look at one of the old podcasts where he's on, where he goes into extensive. I don't know why I did that. It's not...
what episode is it?
Stay with that.
Was it 28? I'm sure it was episode 28, wasn't it?
Yeah, so go and check it out. He is a really nice guy. And he explained actually like how he, in his amateur career and how he was funded by his country's government to pursue his bodybuilding. It was an amazing story of times past.
A lot of those countries throughout the Gulf are very supportive of their athletes. Very, very supportive. Extremely, financially, as well as other ways. Yeah, and I think that Kamal is the perfect role model for the industry, to be honest with you. I think he's an amazing gentleman, an absolutely phenomenal bodybuilder, absolutely phenomenal bodybuilder.
Do you know if he's coming back now this year?
Yes, he's already in prep mode to compete in 2021. And I got to know Kamal a little more, obviously going into Olympia last year, because he was obviously training at Flex's facility. And I feel that the changes that him and Chris Aceto made from 2019 to 2020 were just extreme. So I think that Kamal is like 48, maybe 49.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah. And he's just getting better, guys. You know, he literally is getting better. I mean, how long he's taking that level of physique and get better, we all know at some point, you know, our physiques go backwards, but he certainly isn't going backwards at the moment. His skin is so fresh, clean muscle. And I said to Kamal a couple of times, makes me feel a bit guilty. I said to him in the gym, no one's going to touch this. Doesn't matter what anybody brings, is going to have to take something extreme to challenge this. And that's exactly what Sean brought to the stage. It was extreme. It was unbelievable, guys. But it was toe to toe. It could have gone either way. It wasn't an unfair decision. And it certainly wasn't an unfair decision if Kamal would have won.
Yeah, like you said, it was either way. No one could have argued.
No, not at all.
Kamal just looks great all over, doesn't he? To be honest, I don't want to like fan him, but like he doesn't look anywhere near 48 in any respect.
No, mate. He is, and when I see him in the gym, it's like, you know, he doesn't have the injuries that most people have when they're in the 30s, let alone 40.
Yeah.
There was an exercise that he wasn't able to do.
He was telling us that he doesn't train heavy at all.
No, he was training heavy compared to what people can, you know, other people, but not to him. You know, it was more of a volume train, and it was more like the sort of 14, 20 rep range. I'm not saying that was what his rep range was throughout all his exercises, but in general, you know, he's very intuitive, very engaging with what his requirements and needs are. And I think the trouble is that information and knowledge is great, but you've got to be in line with your physique. And if I go back like 20 minutes and I spoke about the fact that my diets were very different to everybody else's, the same as my training, because I realized that I needed to concentrate and do the things that work for me. But I've also been very, very blessed to work with literally clients, I would say, over a period of like 32 years, which has allowed me to be very diverse as a coach. My clients have broad spectrum, the complete polar opposites. You know, people look at me as a coach to, you know, Flex Lewis or some other amazing athletes, Steve Lauriers, Alex Cambarero, obviously. As you probably guys are aware, I took on Brandon Hendrickson for the last 12 days for Olympia prep, you know, last year. But I would say my greatest success stories are outside of the industry, as far as making life changes for people, you know, people which have lost vast amount of weight, obese, and changed their lives all for the better. And then, you know, other areas of industries and individuals from completely different polar opposite sides of the fitness industry.
Do you know if Flex's, what did he have? Stem cells. Were they successful?
Don't know at the moment, guys. So he had very, very intensive stem cell therapy throughout his knees, his elbow, and his shoulder, because he had a labrum tear. There's no guarantees that stem cell is definitely going to be successful. It's a very expensive procedure, especially when you go with intensive stem cell treatment. And different labs or facilities around the world can be very vast with the quality of what they give you. At the moment, everything is moving in the right direction. So as we stand here presently, I would say that the stem cell treatment has had some form of benefit, but it could take up to 6 months before we start really seeing those benefits. Because another thing is that, speaking to other individuals which have had stem cell, there's been a little bit of consistency where people said it was 6 months after that they noticed that's when the stem cells were really having a profound effect. So it's about nurturing at the moment, and that's where we are. It's trying to nurture, it's trying to create an environment to create positive stimulus, but not over stimulus where we set recovery back and then potentially start picking up injuries again. So there's a very, very fine line. There could be a point where we follow the protocol and everything's perfect, but his body just starts, going backwards as far as, injury prevention is concerned. And it won't necessarily be because training or nutrition or supplementation or hydration. It's just because maybe the years and years and years of active training are having a profound effect. But from the MRI scans, his joints are very, very healthy. So there's no concerns as far as wear and tear and calcification or anything like that. Actually, his joints are actually in a very, very good state. They always have been, but it's soft tissue when it comes to, as I said, ligament, tendon, etc.
So Neil, overlooking last year's Olympia, given the physiques that were in the open class, and obviously in terms of if Flex was to pull through and do that show, could you have predicted where he would have placed last year?
That's naughty.
It is naughty. It is a bit naughty.
Some people aren't going to like this answer, and I'm not talking to you as Flex's coach. I'm talking to you as with an eye of bodybuilding.
I would have said first.
Okay. Nobody, not even myself, has seen the best version of Flex Lewis as an open class athlete because he's never stepped on stage.
Yeah.
But with my mind's eye and the game plan and the vision, I was seeing Flex stepping on stage about 226. From last year's Mr. Olympia, I feel if we would have displayed the image that I had in my mind, what we both had in our mind, Flex probably doesn't have an image because he's so tunnel visioned on being the best version of him. He doesn't always see what's in front of him. A lot of people don't, yes. I feel he would have won the Olympia. Yeah. And if he wouldn't have won the Olympia, he would have been a major threat within that top 3 to 4. And the reason I say that, even 5, like I'm not taking anything away from William. William's obviously a past athlete of mine. The top 5 guys, or even the top 6, they're all different pieces of fruit. They're all totally different polar opposite. Do I feel that that was the best version of Ramy? Yes. Do I feel that Ramy deserved to win? Yes. And I also will say this on public. I think one of the best things that ever happened for bodybuilding in the history of bodybuilding is Ramy winning.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
I think that it's allowed every nationality, and more so obviously, throughout the Arabian countries, for them to realize like this is a sport and a federation for everyone. For everyone. It doesn't matter where you're from. If you displays the best of yourself and you're the best athlete on that stage on the day, then you deserve to win. I felt that Brandon brought his best package to the stage. Some other people will say different. I felt that he brought a more streamlined, complete physique to the stage. I should imagine Abdullah and Brandon were hugely disappointed with second place, but they shouldn't, because to me, they brought an amazing package. I have never seen a physique fade as much in my life as Phil Heath when I saw him on stage on Saturday night. I couldn't believe it. And I don't think you would see it from pictures or videos, guys. I'm a massive fan of Phil Heath. I think he's one of the greatest all-time Mr. Olympias. And I feel for Phil because he's had a lot of heat over the years. Is it justified? I don't know. My experiences of Phil Heath have always been very pleasant. I think he's one, an amazing Mr. Olympia, an incredible Mr. Olympia. And then obviously we had Hadi Chopin, and then we had William. for me, for somebody to beat Rami, you have to have a complete polar opposite. And I feel that Flex is the complete polar opposite to Rami. Some people will argue the fact and justify that Flex will never beat Rami because he just doesn't have the size. And I agree with that. But Flex has shape, symmetry, condition, and all the missing pieces that Rami doesn't have. Would Flex be able to compete against Rami in his side chest and his side tricep? No, there's not an athlete in the world which can do that. But then let's look at all the other poses and put them together and then just start displaying or comparing what bodybuilding is supposed to be about. Bodybuilding is supposed to be about a complete jigsaw. And he is a complete jigsaw in every sense. In every physique to a complete jigsaw is William Bonac when William's 100% on the money. I'm a massive fan of William's physique.
I did want to say that, actually.
And it wasn't the best version of William at last year's Mr. Olympia. And I really don't think it was the best version of William the year before when he came second. Because it's not about places. It's about what is your best ever, what's your best ever package? Because Phil Heath won, 7 Mr. Olympia titles? What was his best look? Maybe on his second, third, or fourth. I don't know. And it's the same when we look at other athletes on stage. Flex has won 7 Mr. Olympias, but we were never 100% on every Mr. Olympia win. But there were certain shows we'd probably say those were our best look to date. I'm a massive fan of William's physique, and I feel that when William is William, he's a very dangerous athlete. And William is somebody that I would always compare Flex against because they're very similar in heights, different structures, but different heights, if that makes sense. And Flex is, and William has beaten Rami in the past, don't forget, guys. And obviously Rami has beaten William. So I think that gives you some kind of like comparison that it's not always about the size. It's about the completeness of a physique. I think the places at last year's Mr. Olympia were perfectly bang on, to be honest with you. I don't think it was, and I didn't have a favorite on stage. I was actually really hoping that William would place better than where he did, because I like his physique and what he brings to the stage. But I think, it just wasn't his best performance, to date. But I know William, it wouldn't have been for the lack of trying, guys,
Yeah. I mean, you're right, because you can't beat Rami at his own game.
No.
He's got his own game locked.
Yep.
And I liked it because Rami actually proved a lot of people wrong, because everyone was like, oh, Rami, yeah, he's massive, but he'll never get in shape, it'll never happen and stuff like that. And then you saw that and you were like, shit, he's done the thing that everyone said that he wouldn't do. Yeah. And he deserved it. I'm glad you mentioned William as well, because I think William's physique is fantastic. It's like, just there's so much, it's like hanging off him.
Yeah, and it's all the intricate detail, guys. When you see William, when William's 100% on the money, he's got this intricate detail that no one else has. It's phenomenal physique, clean muscle bellies, clean skin, clean texture. But William, he's naturally, obviously, narrow in his clavicles. William has to be 100% on. And if William's 100% on, he's a handful for any athlete. Any athlete, whether it's Rami or Flex Lewis or a Brandon Curry, if they don't show concern or respect when William's 100% on, he's going to beat them, because he's deadly, guys. He's absolutely deadly as an athlete. Unbelievable athlete.
Should we do the 5 top tips?
Yeah, I think it's about the time, isn't it?
Let's throw Neil some top tips.
We usually do 90 minutes. I've just sat down like I've been at a lecture, to be honest.
I know, it's been great.
It's been amazing.
Usually I chat shit like all the time, but there was no room for that. It's been amazing.
I think that's why it's been nice.
It's been nice not to hear me. I feel awkward silences and haven't been any, so that's been good.
I think let's start off with tip number 1. I apologize for talking about COVID when we should be talking about bodybuilding. So that's tip number 1. I think, seriously, tip number one, be open-minded enough, intelligent enough to follow your own path and what you're chasing. It's important to listen and learn from others, but don't be impulsive and reckless with your choices. I think that a lot of people in our industry make a lot of reckless decisions that they don't have to do. I think tip number three is distance yourself away from negative social media and don't get caught up with trying to compare yourself and fight for all the attention from individuals. Just stay in your lane, stay in your bubble, concentrate on your own shit, guys. Everyone has their own ability to write a storybook or write their own journey in life, and don't try to follow somebody else's shadows. Be yourself, be consistent, be relentless, be methodical, be structured, but also be accountable. If you can't be accountable to yourself, because a lot of us can't be accountable to ourselves in certain areas, be accountable to somebody else. If you're going to use a coach, be prepared that it's going to be a long journey. There's a lot to learn. Your bodies change, life changes, you're going to come across challenges. Not every coach is going to be compatible for every athlete. So if you are going to use a coach, then understand that the journey is not going to just happen overnight. I see a lot of athletes at the moment jumping from coach to coach to coach to coach. And I can remember seeing somebody that has just posted he started working with another coach. He's probably had 6 coaches in the last 7 years. And there isn't a quick fix. Do I feel that I've been very lucky to have success with great athletes? Yeah, but we work really hard as a team. It is a team. I'm not taking anything away from any of the athletes' success, but there's a lot more to coaching than just telling somebody what to eat and how to train. I think that I try to be a positive lifestyle coach or lifetime coach as well as everything else. And I would say, stay healthy, be smart with your choices. It's not a marathon, it's not a sprint, it is a marathon. You need to look at longevity and way beyond your competitive career or what it is you're looking to chase as far as being an athlete is concerned. And I think that's probably my best advice, to everybody. And, just keep chasing the things that excite you. As long as you have passion in what you do, I always feel you're going to have progress. If you're not passionate about what you're doing and you're chasing things for all of the wrong reasons, then I would say you're more likely to fail.
Shit, those were good.
Best ones? Best ones?
I was just about to start explaining to you what we wanted, and then you just went.
Yeah, you were just like, here's some gold, use it as you will. Like fairies.
Superb.
Oh, mate, Neil, you've smashed it. Amazing.
I appreciate you guys. I promise I will try to stay more active, in the industry in the UK. As I said, I'm just in my own little bubble, but I want people to know that wherever I am in the world, I'm very, very proud to represent the whole of the UK fitness community. Like, seriously, it's something that is very, very personal to me. And the industry is very vast. And there's a lot of great individuals out there. There's a lot of great athletes and there's a lot of great, great coaches which don't get the recognition that they deserve. I just feel that I've been very fortunate to be, I don't know if it's in the right place at the right time. Do I feel that I work hard? I probably work 78 hours a week and I love my work. Nothing's ever come easy, ever. People don't see all the small things. They see the success, but they don't see anything in between. But they don't need to. They don't need to. But I am very grateful for the opportunities and the things that I do in the industry. I am very passionate about watching the fitness industry grow worldwide as well as the UK. And I want to wish all you guys all the very best in what you do, whether it's in life, fitness, or your goals.
Thank you.
I think we should just replace the Queen's speech with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Just answer the Queen. He's got it all. What a pro. I think
Thank you, Neil.
Just do your own podcast.
What we'll do again, if you guys are interested, I promise, I'll bring Flex on here and we'll do something.
No.
Yeah, I'll do.
Mate, if you can do that.
I'll bring. Listen, I'll make it happen. Listen, anything to support the fitness community in the UK, Flex will definitely be up to. As you can imagine, there's been a lot of moving parts going on at the moment because it's just been so busy. Yes.
Yes.
I'll be seeing him Monday, and I'll speak to him. And I know that he will definitely support you guys with what you're doing. Yeah,
Neil, let him know that there's a fellow Kicks gym member on the podcast.
Okay. Yeah,
he'll know.
He'll watch this because he watches everything that's out there, to do with the bodybuilding industry in the UK, guys. So as I said, I do appreciate your time. I know that it's kind of just past your working hours when we jumped on you. It's like 5 o'clock, and I hope that.
But this isn't work. We all love doing this. We all love hearing about it. This is not.
For an opportunity to speak with you, Neil, we probably would have come on you at midnight.
Yeah, if you'd have been like 5 p.m. my time, midnight yours, we'd be like, yeah, right.
Mate, I left 3 o'clock this morning to get my work done, so I got back for this. So I definitely have a nap.
It's been a pleasure, Neil.
Last quick one, guys. Where are you all from? Because you're obviously in different places of the UK. So where are you guys from?
Pontypridd in South Wales.
Okay, cool.
I'm in Bridgend in South Wales.
Yeah, I'm in Swansea.
Well, we've got a real Welsh crew going on here, guys. It's like a rugby team.
And then I'm just over the water in Bristol.
Okay, well, you're sort of semi-Welsh, aren't you?
Close enough. Yeah. I'm horrifically outnumbered, so I won't banter about the toll charge or anything today.
We won't talk about the rugby, so yeah.
Never talk about rugby.
Appreciate your time, Neil. Thank you very much.
Yes, and good luck with everything that you do in life, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neil.
Thanks, Neil.
Take care,
bye, mate.
See you later, guys.